screen here? Good afternoon, everyone. That is loud. I guess you can all hear me all right then. That's a good sign. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started here. First thing, if you take a look at the screen right here, it's going to disappear in a minute. Sorry. We have NBB Connect or BioDiesel Connect. So if you go to connect.biodiesel.conference.org, you can do that on your phone, on your laptop, whatever you want. But if you check in, then you can actually win a gift card to Amazon today. So who doesn't like free money? So make sure you do that. And you can do that all throughout the conference at every session. Just check in and it will be great. All right. So first of all, my name is Cody Graham. I am on staff with the National BioDiesel Board. I am the Communications and Member Specialist. And then up here with me, we have Don Scott, who is our Director of Sustainability, and Scott Fenwick, who is our Technical Director. So we will be giving you the BioDiesel 101 presentation. So before we begin, by show of hands, who here is relatively new to the biodiesel industry and you came to learn because you don't know much about biodiesel, but you want to? Wow, that's awesome. Well, welcome. Who here is a veteran, but you just wanted a refresher, and so this is the best place to do it? Okay, good. And who here is just killing time before the reception? Doug is in the back, all right. Well, want to say thank you for attending, everyone. Thank you for coming down. I know across the Midwest there was some difficulty with the ice, so thanks for trying to get out here and coming in, and welcome to San Diego. This is my first time. I don't know if you guys have been here before, but I like it already. I was wearing shorts earlier, and it's fantastic. So basically what this session is going to do is give you kind of an overview to the biodiesel industry. All week, we have some really good sessions lined up for you all, and they are a little bit more in depth. So as many of you raise your hands, this is going to give you a good overview, answer some of your basic questions so that later when all the professionals are speaking, you won't be like, what does that mean? I don't even know how to start that. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. In case you did see me limping around earlier, I tore my MCL a few weeks ago, so if I suddenly collapse on stage in agonizing pain, don't worry about it. It's totally normal. So, yeah, so basically the first question I want to answer is, who are we? What are we doing up here, and who is this that's putting on the conference? So we are the National BioDiesel Board, NBB for short. You'll see that most of the time. Up here is our mission statement. As far as mission statements go, I think it's a really good one, so I'll just read it to you. Representing America's first advanced biofuel, the National BioDiesel Board will advance the interests of its members by creating sustainable biodiesel industry growth. NBB serves as the U.S. biodiesel industry's central coordinating entity and will be the single voice for its diverse membership base. Industry success will be achieved through government affairs, communication, market development, technical, and quality assurance programs. We are dedicated to inclusiveness and integrity. So there you can definitely see a lot of our kind of program areas, some of the big interests that we like to focus on. But we, as a company, are based in Jefferson City, Missouri, and we also have an office in Washington, D.C. So when it says governmental affairs, they deal with a lot of that stuff. We were actually created in 1992 to develop a biodiesel industry. So before NBB was created, there wasn't a biodiesel industry. We had an idea for a fuel and different people who were wanting to take part in it, but NBB was created in order to really launch the whole industry and start creating biodiesel, marketing biodiesel, selling biodiesel, everything biodiesel. So really, everything that we do is to maintain just steady, sustainable industry growth. We have more than 170 members all across the nation. You can see all the little dots are all our member companies. These represent producers, distributors, feedstock organizations, many others. We even have a couple in Canada, so it's not just the national, we're getting international, so it's pretty big time. So the main question, why are you here? What is biodiesel? It's a great question, and it's a little bit more difficult to answer than you might think. So the first thing, this is the official definition of biodiesel. Biodiesel is a fuel comprised of monoalkyl esters of long-chain fatty acids derived from vegetable oils or animal fats designated B100 and meeting the requirements of ASTM D6751. So now that we all know what it is, we'll move on. That's way too complicated of a definition for a 101 seminar, right? It's a lot of syllables there. So biodiesel, the main thing you want to get from this definition is there's two things actually. The B100 up there, most biodiesel that you'll see is in blends. So B100 is actually 100% biodiesel, but most of the time what you'll see is something like B20, which B20 would mean a 20% biodiesel, 80% petroleum diesel blend, or B5 would be 5% biodiesel, 95% petroleum diesel. So it seems complicated, but it's really simple. Just whatever number is after the B, that's how much biodiesel is in the blend. The second thing is that it says biodiesel has to meet the requirements of ASTM D6751. We'll get into ASTM in a little bit, but the main thing you need to know is that if it doesn't meet those specifications, it's not actually biodiesel, all right? So the Google definition, because Google has its own dictionary, Google definition says the biodiesel is a biofuel intended as a substitute for diesel. That's a pretty good definition, pretty simple. But the one that we like to use is biodiesel is a renewable fuel for diesel engines made from fats and oils. So that kind of covers the gist of it. It's a renewable fuel, it's made from fats and oils, and it's made for diesel engines. Those are like the three big things you need to know. The only thing you may not be completely familiar with is renewable. Renewable is a source of energy that is not depleted by use, such as wind, water, or solar power. So it's capable of being renewed. So basically, biodiesel is solar energy that is stored in liquid form because the sun gives energy to soybeans, for instance. And soybeans will grow, produce the oil. That oil is used to make biodiesel, and then when it's used, it goes back into the air. So it's renewable, keeps going round and round. Don will talk a little bit more about that later with sustainability. But the last thing that you need to know about biodiesel is that it is an advanced biofuel. So an advanced biofuel can be produced from qualifying renewable biomass, except cornstarch, and must meet a 50% GHG reduction. GHG is greenhouse gases. So in order to be classified as an advanced biofuel, it has to reduce greenhouse gases by more than 50%. And biodiesel does. It actually reduces emissions 57 to 86%. So it categorizes as an advanced biofuel through the Environmental Protection Agency. Again, we'll touch on that a little bit more right at the end. But the other complicated part of this, when it says a qualifying renewable biomass, that that basically means that it's made from plant matter that's gone through strict sustainability criteria designated by the EPA to qualify for part of the RFS program. So again, we'll touch on RFS and government affairs at the very end, but yeah, just throughout the conference, you'll probably see people talk about advanced biofuel. Biodiesel counts. So now we know what biodiesel is. Let's talk about what biodiesel is not. Biodiesel is not raw vegetable oil, or SVO, which is straight vegetable oil. This is what you would go and buy at the store for lots of different things. That is not biodiesel. Biodiesel is also not recycled cooking oil. It's not McDonald's fry grease. I put both of these up here because both of these are something that can help make biodiesel. So biodiesel can come from recycled cooking oil or raw vegetable oil, but just by itself, those are not biodiesel. Biodiesel is also not ethanol. This may seem pretty straightforward, but all these are things that we see in the media. We see people asking questions about them all the time. Ethanol is a renewable fuel, but it's made for gasoline engines. Biodiesel is made for diesel engines, obviously. RHD, or renewable diesel, is also not biodiesel. This is a renewable fuel that is made for diesel engines, and it's actually made from a lot of the same substances as biodiesel, but again, it's not biodiesel because it doesn't meet the specific specifications, and it goes through a different process to be made. There's actually going to be a session later on this week about renewable diesel and the difference between renewable diesel and biodiesel, so if you want to get more in depth in that, just attend the session. It'll be awesome. Biodiesel is not just any renewable fuel that is made for diesel engines. It's not just the catch-all word for biofuels. A lot of times people will say, oh yeah, this is all of this is biodiesel because it's a renewable fuel or because it's just made for diesel engines. But that's not the case. Like I said earlier, it has to meet the strict specifications. If it doesn't, then it's not biodiesel. So at this point, you're saying, okay, well, biodiesel is not all this. Biodiesel is very specific. What makes it unique? What is special about biodiesel? One of those things is where it comes from. So biodiesel is very diverse, has very diverse feedstocks that can used to create the fuel. So up here you see a lot of different pictures. You got soybean oil, yellow grease, brown grease, canola oil, corn oil from ethanol production, cottonseed oil, algae, animal fats. All these can all be used to create biodiesel. And the soybean oil, the soybean picture is the biggest because historically soybean oil is what is used to make biodiesel the most. About 50% of all biodiesel comes from soybean oil. So basically this diversity really is a huge advantage that biodiesel gets to have because it can come from all this stuff. It doesn't just focus on one feedstock or one area of the country. For instance, on the coasts where we're at now, there's a lot of people, so there's a lot of used cooking oil. As a result, a lot of the biodiesel around the east and west coast come from used cooking oil. In the Midwest, there's a lot of soybeans, so biodiesel is made from soybeans. In Texas, Louisiana, there's lots of beef and poultry, so you can use animal fats. So regardless where you're at in the country, you can make biodiesel, and that helps it to stay cheaper, helps it to stay diverse, and really helps the industry overall. So another thing that makes it unique is how it's made. If you really want all the super technical questions, you can ask Scott, but for the 101 session, I'm going to show you here. Basically, you take, it's a process that's called transesterification. That's a really long, complicated word for a pretty simple process. Basically, you take vegetable oil or animal fat, you add alcohol, because who doesn't want to add alcohol to something? And you add heat or catalyst, basically make a reaction, and what you get is biodiesel and glycerin. And so then when you separate it, basically you can picture like vegetable oil from the store. What you're doing is removing the waxy substance from that to make it the consistency of diesel fuel. So you look at that and it's like, man, that's pretty simple. 100 pounds of vegetable oil, 10 pounds of alcohol gets 100 pounds of biodiesel, 10 pounds of glycerin. There's got to be more to it than that, right? Well, the thing is, there's not. Like, it really is that simple. It's simple enough that you can make it in your garage. You've probably heard of people doing that. The thing is, though, what you make in your garage doesn't meet those ASTM specifications. So it's not considered real biodiesel. So these ASTM is, you can see it's got different specifications for B100, so 100% biodiesel, pure biodiesel. It's got petroleum diesel specifications, it's got heating oil, and even just blends of B6 through B20 has their own specifications. So if it doesn't meet these standards, if it doesn't meet what ASTM classifies as biodiesel, then it's not really biodiesel. And so really, if you're making it in your garage, you're going to get you're going to get a worse product than what you would at one of our retailers or distributors that is qualified by ASTM. So these standards are performance-based. So really what they're there for is to show that regardless of where it comes from, how it's made, what feedstock is used, you're always going to get the same biodiesel. It's going to perform the same way, regardless of the process that goes to create it. So down at the very bottom, you can see the BQ 9000 logo. That is our voluntary fuel quality program. Really, if you get their stamp of approval, then not only are you meeting the specifications, you're meeting the standards, but you're saying that you have the highest quality biodiesel around. So if you're just going to go buy biodiesel, make sure that it has the BQ 9000 logo on it, and you're going to get the very best that money can buy. So what do we know now? We know what it is. We know where it comes from. Next question is, who is using biodiesel? So here we have some pictures. These are some staff and some friends of ours, all just filling up their diesel vehicles with biodiesel. Because the cool thing is, biodiesel can be used in any existing diesel vehicle. You don't have to have a specific type of car. You don't have to have the biodiesel logo across your car. Any diesel vehicle that exists can use biodiesel. At the bottom you see there's a big truck, some buses. These are the more traditional diesel markets that you think of. You've got farm equipment, emergency services, construction equipment, military vehicles. All these rely on diesel, and as a result, they can all rely on biodiesel. Especially with farm equipment, the nice thing about that is that farmers can use biodiesel in their equipment to harvest soybeans and get more soybean oil to create more biodiesel. So again, you have some of that renewable process. It just keeps recycling. The main thing I want to point out here, though, is the diesel market for goods movement. Basically, everything that any good that you have that is moved around the country, any product, whether it's moved by freight rail, heavy-duty trucks, cargo handling equipment, or boat and barge, they all rely on diesel. So imagine if all of these diesel vehicles all used biodiesel. That's so much biodiesel that we could be putting out into the marketplace. So really there is just an insane amount of room for growth for biodiesel, because we definitely still are a growing industry. But because the diesel market is so big, there's a lot of room that biodiesel can get in there. So there's also some really famous logos and brands that you probably can recognize here. All these people like to use biodiesel as well. So Google, for instance, uses biodiesel in their shuttles across the Google campus. Planters Peanuts, if you've seen the giant peanut mobile, it's a car that's shaped like a peanut. It uses biodiesel. Disney uses biodiesel in their trains. All these people rely on biodiesel to get their job done. So it's still growing, still being used by a lot of well-respected brands. So now you've had a glimpse of how big the diesel market can be, and you might be asking yourself, well, how does biodiesel compare to regular petroleum diesel? It's a question that we get a lot. And really, you can see here the energy content of biodiesel is just slightly lower than petroleum diesel, but that is at the B100 level. And as Don has pointed out to me several times, biodiesel burns better. It's more fuel efficient than regular petroleum diesel. So as a result, a lot of the wasted emissions from petroleum diesel is wasted fuel. So you're going to get the same miles per gallon from biodiesel that you are in regular petroleum diesel. But again, this is at the B100 level. This is pure biodiesel. At a B20 level, the percentage becomes 1% to 2%, which is really negligible. In fact, a lot of our fleet friends who've done extensive testing on biodiesel find more variance between one driver and the next than they do from using B20 to no biodiesel at all. So biodiesel works really well, but the benefit of it also is it has a higher cetane, which is a measure of the combustion speed for diesel fuel, and it's got a higher lubricity, which is important for the longevity of an engine. Basically at the B20 level, you've got the same horsepower, the same fuel economy, and the same torque as petroleum diesel. And yet, some people actually still prefer it. In fact, you can ask this guy here, Brent Hayek. Brent Hayek set the diesel land speed record in 2011 in the Ford Super Duty there that you see. So he set the record at 169 miles per hour. It's pretty fast, especially in a big truck like that. Right after he set it, 169 miles per hour, he drained the tank and refilled it with B20. Ran the same course and hit 182 miles per hour. So his vehicle performs better with biodiesel than with petroleum diesel. And we hear a lot of stories all the time about people that they say, yeah, biodiesel it makes my car run better, it smells better, we just like the fuel more. So, and remember with these fuel quality standards, it's not that he was using a specialized version of biodiesel. He was using real biodiesel that is all across the board. Wherever you fill up, as long as it meets these standards, you're going to get the same performance every time. So now I want to talk about how much biodiesel is actually used. So you can see in 2006, there was about 250 million gallons used. Back in 2003, there was 20 million gallons used. And now, the 2016, we don't have the final numbers for all that, but this is the closest estimate that we have right now. We're clearly over a 2 billion gallon market. That's awesome. I mean, biodiesel is just every year improving overall. The graph speaks for itself. I mean, it's significant, steady growth, and that's just been the industry trend. And it's really good because of how good biodiesel is for the environment. That's one of the biggest things that we talk about is biodiesel is a good fuel for your car, but also it's good for people and good for the environment. In fact, here is a little graph here. This is from 2015, so some of these numbers have even increased. But with 2.1 billion gallons used, that is the same as removing 3.8 million cars from the road, or planting 466 million trees, or preserving 14.9 million acres of mature forests. It reduces carbon by 18.2 million metric tons. So overall, biodiesel has reduced the life cycle greenhouse gases 78% less than petroleum diesel, which, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Like I said, it's clearly a very good fuel for the environment, clearly helping us breathe better, helping us live longer on this earth. So I want to move on to some of the questions that we get a lot about biodiesel. These are some of the frequently asked questions. This is one that you may have heard of. People ask a lot of time, well, how does biodiesel work in cold weather? The reason that they ask that is because biodiesel has a higher cloud point than regular diesel. So cloud point is actually it's the point at which the fuel begins to get cloudy and less liquid-like. It starts to gel up a little bit more. All diesel has this problem. Biodiesel, its cloud point is a few degrees higher, so it just starts to gel at a little bit warmer of a temperature than regular petroleum diesel. However, there's a lot of things that you can do to prevent that. Really, anyone who has used any sort of preventative measure has had a lot of success, and these are not complicated things. These are like blending your biodiesel with number 1 diesel rather than number 2 diesel, using fuel heaters, just parking inside, using a cold flow additive, anything that you would normally do with petroleum diesel, you can do with biodiesel. So if you drive a diesel vehicle in the winters, you take steps anyway, these same things will work with biodiesel. So in fact, the picture there is from Harvard. You can see it's just covered in snow. This was a few years ago when they had their giant snowpocalypse. They use B20 in all their vehicles, no problem. They used it, relied on it, and it all worked very well. We have plenty of people that do the same thing. Even there's a national park on the border of Canada up in Michigan. They use B20 all year long, have no problem with it. They just take the necessary precautions, and it works great. So yeah, I mean, B20 has been successfully used in climates below -20 degrees Fahrenheit. So cold weather is something to watch out for, but something that is easily fixed and not something to worry about. This question may seem kind of silly. Is biodiesel safe? But yes, it is very safe, and that's important to know. It's actually less toxic than table salt, and it biodegrades as fast as sugar. So, I mean, you're not worried about using salt and sugar on your food. I wouldn't use biodiesel on your food. It probably just tastes bad. But if there's a spill, if there's something that happens catastrophic, we all have seen the Gulf of Mexico and like BP spills all their oil. If it's biodiesel, it's not going to have nearly as bad of an effect as petroleum diesel does. It also has a lower flash point, which is the temperature at which fuel combusts, which basically means that it's less likely to catch on fire and explode. All of this makes biodiesel a safer fuel to handle and to transport and to store. And not only do you get this, but you get the same air quality benefits that I talked about earlier. So here's a picture here. This is a pretty bad accident with a biodiesel tanker. It flipped over. You can see the fuel running down the street. But I think this picture it's cool because this is as bad as it gets. You all have seen the pictures of the diesel tankers that are just engulfed in flames, just billowing huge black clouds up into the sky. The biggest complaint that people had about this wreck was that it was a little bit slippery. It wasn't exploding. It wasn't on fire. It's not toxic, not just going to completely destroy the ground or the water or anything that it goes into. So biodiesel is a very safe fuel. Next question is, where can you get biodiesel? So like I said, biodiesel is still a growing industry. And right now there's at least 2,000 public locations, approximately 1,000 retailers, 450 truck stops, 600 distributors that all distribute and supply biodiesel to the public. And in fact, NBB created an app because it's 2017. You all have smartphones, I'm sure. You can all get an app. It's called BioDiesel Now, and you can also go online if you don't have a phone on you. But the app can show you, you can access it, and it can show you where any biodiesel station is around you. So I even looked at it when I got here, and there's 2 stations here in San Diego, not too far. If you're traveling, you can set the app on a travel mode, and so if you don't know where you're going to be at, where there's going to be a nearest biodiesel station, it will actually alert you as you get closer to one. And it'll say, oh, hey, there's one right up here. So we have a couple different ways for you to find biodiesel, but that's one thing that we keep working on, is trying to get more people to use biodiesel and more biodiesel being used around the country so that it's available more. Also, if you do happen to know of a place that sells biodiesel, is supplying biodiesel, and it's not on our map or in the app, let us know, because we take information from everyone that we can to try and get the most accurate, up-to-date information. So the last thing is government affairs. This is a big topic that we deal with a whole lot in the biodiesel industry. This is a 101 class, so we're going to keep it simple, but there's going to be several really good sessions. I encourage all of you to attend and just listen in and try and tune in and hear what's going on in Washington, especially with new administration and everything like that. There's a lot going on, a lot that you should try and be aware of. So I want to just cover some of the basics here. The two main things that I want to talk about are the Renewable Fuel Standard, which is often just the RFS. You'll see that acronym a lot. The Renewable Fuel Standard requires minimum amounts of renewable fuel to be blended into the petroleum supply. So it was actually created under George Bush in 2007, and then enacted, like the second version of it came in 2011, where biodiesel was actually included. So we'll cover a little bit more on that in just a second. The second one is the biodiesel tax credit. Right now, the current blender's credit has just expired. But what it was is a $1 per credit, per gallon credit that goes to the original blender of the B100, whoever blends it with petroleum diesel. This has been on and off since 2005. The fact that it's lapsed right now is not uncommon, unfortunately. But what this does is it puts more money out into the marketplace so that whoever's making the biodiesel can get a little bit of a tax credit on that, which then extends all the way down to the consumer. And what NBB has been working on is trying to get that switch to to a producer's credit, so the people that produce the biodiesel rather than blend it. The main reason that we are trying to do that is because with a blender's credit, we have a lot of imports coming in. Imports make up a lot of the American biodiesel industry, and it's because a place like Argentina or Brazil or somewhere will actually blend, or they will send the biodiesel that they produce into the U.S. and have it blended so that they get the tax credit. And so really they're just taking our tax money. Instead, with the producer's credit, any domestically produced biodiesel would get that credit. So we would be able to keep more money circulating domestically rather than having to send it all overseas. So that's still in the works. Still, you're probably going to hear a lot about it this week. Still something that we are very active and working toward, and we are optimistic that it's going to be reenacted because if you didn't know, in the past, whenever it has lapsed, sometimes they usually will enact it for like a year later. So it's complicated and it's weird, but like I said, this is a 101, and there's plenty of people that you can ask questions in later sessions for. So the RFS, like I said, we talk a little bit more about this. The RFS is kind of broken down into four main categories: cellulosic biofuel, biomass-based diesel, advanced biofuel, and total renewable fuel. So you'll recognize one of these already, advanced biofuel. We talked about that earlier. So biodiesel fits into that category. It also fits into biomass-based diesel. So the biomass-based diesel category is mainly made up of biodiesel and renewable diesel. The advanced biofuel category is made up of the biomass-based diesel category and some other renewable fuels. And then that total renewable fuel is everything combined. So we wanted to focus on the biomass-based diesel and the advanced biofuel because that's where biodiesel fits. Every year, the EPA is required to increase the volumes of renewable fuels, and so they've just done that again with biomass-based diesel. In the volumes for 2017 were at 2 billion, and they have just increased it to 2.1 billion for 2018. And the advanced biofuel category was at 3.6 billion, and now it is 4.2 billion for 2017. You'll see the dates are a little bit off. The biomass-based diesel category requires it to be done 2 years in advance, whereas all the other categories are just 1 year. So the good news about this, what this helps our industry do, is it requires that this much biodiesel be used in the petroleum supply. And so it's basically saying, hey, you guys have to make at least this much biodiesel. And so we do. And we've been beating those numbers every year, and we continue to try and get the EPA to give us higher volumes and higher volumes, because it just means that more and more people get to use biodiesel and get to have it produced and put into the fuel supply. So I'm sure that there are plenty of questions that you have on all that, but like I said, there's going to be a lot of good sessions later on. You can just look through the pocket guide, and there's several government affairs sessions that are going to be had this week. So feel free to attend those and ask questions, read up on it. But for now, that is my 101 portion. So now we're going to go ahead and pass it off to Don, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the sustainability side of it.